Perfect. Right, let's get going then. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to the fucking. Oh God, it's been a while. Hello everyone. Welcome back to Pucking Mad. It's been a long, dry couple of months for me. Haven't really been doing much in the hockey world. I'm not a big fan of rumours and drama, so I try to avoid it. And today we've got a real special one. Obviously, we have NIHL roster updates here, which is a really cool thing for me because as someone who doesn't like drama and doesn't like rumors, it's nice to have one place that I can go to find facts about the transfers and the moves. So I thought it might be best. Would you like to introduce yourself first to who you are? You'll do a better job of it than me, I'm sure.
Okay, hi, my name's John. I run NIHL Rosters website, Twitter, Facebook, that keeps people up to date with the comings and goings. It started off 15 years ago. It started off originally as EPL rosters back when the EPL was the second tier. It's morphed, changed as leagues have died away like they do in the UK, and as teams have moved around. So yeah, I've been doing it 15 years. We have a website, nihlrosters.co.uk. That's updated as and when signings happen. I too only deal in fact. I cover NIHL National, 1 and 2 North and South, and last 2 or 3 years I've also started branching out into the SNL. That was originally at the SNL's request, believe it or not. I don't do Elite League. Purely because I'm already doing 6 leagues. If we average it out at 10 teams a league, I know some have got more, some have got less. That's 60 teams, 25 players a team. That's a lot of players coming and going, and I don't really need another 250, 300 players on my plate for the Elite League. Additionally, could call me lazy a little bit, I suppose, with the Elite League. Once the season starts, the NIHL kind of dries up with players moving. You do have some who may retire mid-season, some who may make clubs mid-season, but that's it, and it's minimal. The thing with the Elite League is they change imports like most people change socks, so I really don't want to be able to keep up with that as well during the season. I'm quite happy. Fans off season is my on season because that's when all the signings are happening. Once the season starts, it kind of becomes my off season because there's not a lot for me to be doing, and it's quite nice. It's nice for it not to be year round. It's nice for me to have some gap. It started off originally, a bit about me. I used to volunteer for the Bracknell Bees for a long time, doing all sorts of different stuff: website, Twitter, Facebook, social media, match night program, live stream commentary, all sorts of things. That came to an end when the Bees moved to Slough. I don't volunteer with the Bees anymore, so I have more time for the rosters. It originally started out back in the day because I needed the information. Elite prospects did not exist 15 years ago. We had Eurohockey.net and we had HockeyDB, which were the precursors, and they were good for what they did, which was historic stats, but they didn't do it in real time. It wasn't as up to date. Elite Prospects is great at what it does. It's fantastic at what it does, if we're all honest. But my idea 15 years ago was somewhere where fans of probably the Bees, because that was my team at the time, could go and see who was going to rock up on the opposition, what teams had where Bees players had gone. Back, I can tell you now, because I was doing the social media back then. 15 years ago, teams didn't announce when players left. Players just disappeared at the end of the season, and then you would announce the signings as new players came in. It was very rare that clubs would announce that a player had left. The first you would know is when another team signed that player. So I needed it selfishly, really. I needed it for my match night programs, my coverage of the Bees, and then I started talking to other program editors at other teams and started to share that information. It was via a spreadsheet that got passed around like a bad penny. So I then put it onto a little website and gave the other program editors the link and said, hey, we can keep this up to date between us and don't tell anyone else, it's just for us. And then, yeah, one off season it occurred to me and I thought, why don't I make this available to the public? Maybe fans would like this. And that's how it started. That was where the ball started rolling, and it's been rolling downhill ever since. And it's kind of like a runaway train now because, like I say, it started as one league. It's now got 6 leagues. I'm following through the rosters site all of the team's social media and everything. So when the signing happens, I know about it and I try and put it out as soon as possible. We're on Twitter at NIHL Rosters. We're on Facebook at NIHL Rosters. I jumped on the Threads bandwagon recently as it passed everybody by. I jumped on that. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep that, to be honest, but I'm on there. But thanks to Instagram, I'm at Rosters NIHL on Threads because somehow they spun the name around for me. Thank you. So yeah, at NIHL Rosters on everything, unless you're a Threads user, in which case it's at Rosters NIHL.
Perfect.
I've asked them to change it, but
Well, no.
Don't want to know.
Good old Threads. Good old Threads. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't see it lasting much longer, to be honest. It seems to be on its.
It seemed to boom when it opened, and I'll be honest, I jumped on it just in case Twitter went bang. I think that's what most people did.
Yeah.
I think most people thought Twitter was about to go bang, so everyone jumped the Threads, and now, 3 months later, everyone realises that actually Twitter's probably not going anywhere.
Yes. They're only going to get bigger now.
I'm not even sure I should be calling it Twitter now. I'll probably get a knock on the door from somebody shortly telling me that it's no longer that.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's very true. But yeah, that's really cool. So obviously you've been running this beast, it kind of from the shadows, really. People haven't known who you are publicly. What's the motivation for coming forward now? Is there a grand vision for it?
No, not really. There really isn't one. I think what it is since the bees and I parted way, which all I will say is it wasn't the smoothest. It could have gone better. I've kind of stepped away from the sport, and I don't go to as many games. If I do, it's not at Slough with the Bees. It's the occasional league game up at Nottingham or Cardiff is like a weekend away. Oxford, Solent, some of these places are going to see my mush this year because I'm going to go to some of these rinks that I've never been to. Teams that the Bees never played, I've never been to. So I'm thinking of doing that. There isn't really a mega reason for coming out, for want of a better phrase. There really isn't one. I think it's just. I think some people think it's a team of people that do NIHL rosters. I think a lot of people may have thought, using Joe Scutts as an example, that NIHL stats must have been a bunch of people. That's got to be a group of people doing it, right? And then I was blown away when I found it was just Joe.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of coming from that same angle where I don't necessarily want the publicity. I'm not wanting to announce myself in any way. I just thought that yourself and other pods that are around might be an idea to hook up and link up with you guys. A lot of people who know me know that I do NIHL rosters, but a lot of people who know NIHL rosters don't know me. And I just thought I've never been hiding in the shadows. Really, it's not been an intentional thing. I don't go around with a T-shirt with NIHL rosters written on it and kind of announce it that way or anything. But it's never been a conscious effort to hide it, and it's not really much of a conscious effort to step into the light now. It was more go and talk to yourself and Anthony at Banners on the Wall and other people. I thought help get NIHL rosters out there, but also help you guys because Rosters has been around 15 years.
Yeah,
it's got a decent following on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh yeah, you're definitely bigger than me. Definitely bigger than me.
So appearing on things like this, it's more of a two-way street. It's to help you guys as well as
Well, it's amazing.
Get us out about them.
Yeah, I was very surprised when you messaged me about arranging it. I was very pleased. I was quite honoured to be. There's been a few things like this where I've been sort of mentioned in with or messaged by people, and I've been quite surprised by the fact that I've been considered with certain heavyweights like yourself. So it's quite cool. If we could move on quickly and talk about kind of a bit of the off-season drama. Obviously, like you like to deal with facts and as do I. I feel it makes for better quality content anyway. But like, what's your take on the whole Steel Dogs situation? You've been around long enough to kind of know dramas. You're probably
Yeah,
hardened to it.
UK hockey's never short of drama. It's not a UK hockey off season or a proper UK hockey off season without some drama. Either some league having problems, some team having problems, something going on that is controversial. My take on the whole Steel Dogs Steelers thing, it could have been handled so much better. One thing that UK hockey seems to struggle with for a lot of it is communication. The teams are great at their social medias. Big thumbs up and nod to Solway, by the way, because they're smashing their social media. Most teams are pretty good with their social media and their communication with their fans when they want to.
Yeah.
When they want something, when they want you to buy tickets or they want you to own and loan shirts or whatever. Yeah, the communication's good there. The PR for player announcements and stuff has changed. It's definitely changed since I did it for the Bees years and years ago. It was all written. Now there's video. I don't know if anybody's seen the Solway one with Curtis Warburton and the whole loaves of bread thing. And the other goalie for Solway wandering out onto Queen of the South's football pitch and asking where the ice is. Great social media. I think the Steel Dogs, Steelers, NIHL, whoever, all the parties involved in what's kicked around this off-season, they all kind of need their heads bashing together because they didn't say or communicate anything. So the fans, because of the history of UK hockey, are going to speculate. They're going to gossip. And you are going to get some really, really outlandish theories flying around because nobody's saying what the true narrative is. And no, you can't always give the whole truth. And UK hockey fans, as a group, sometimes I think feel that they're entitled to a little more than they actually should know. Not everybody needs to know everything about everything, but
yeah,
come out and tell people what's going on. You know, a local newspaper, the Sheffield Star, that's kind of the unofficial mouthpiece of the Sheffield Steelers, is doing all these news stories and all this stuff. And fans are like, is that true? Is it not true? What's the gossip? You know, I'm hearing different things. My mate's mum's hairdresser tells me that, you know, something. And it gets picked up on and, oh, they're going to kick him out of the league. Why? Why are you kicking the team out of the league? Oh, it's Planet Ice's fault because they sponsor the league now and they've got this grand vision and Sheffield are messing with that grand vision, so they're getting kicked out. And then all of a sudden you hear, oh no, the Steelers want to buy them because Ali Cree's trying to sell, and you don't know what to make of any of it. And then Steelers and Steel Dogs PR, it was okay, it wasn't too bad, but then the NIHL put something out and you think, all right, that's kind of put it to bed. And then Planet Ice kind of say, no, hold my beer, and put out their own press release, and everyone's like, whoa, hang on, that's a totally different story to what we're being told. As a Bees fan who lost our rink,
yes,
as a Bees fan who, when John Knight gave up the team, when David Taylor couldn't pay the bills, when other things have happened and our team has been inches from disappearing for good, I'm glad the Steel Dogs are still around. That's my main take from it. Are the Steelers going to do things that other people don't like? Probably. But you know what? It's theirs now, so they can do it. They can do what they want effectively. They it's their thing now. Do I hope that it puts a decent pathway between the Steel Dogs and the Steelers? Of course, we all do. Will it? Not immediately. It's going to take time because the Steel Dogs have some good players. Are they good enough to go play regularly for the Steelers? Apart from, and again, no disrespect intended to anyone when I say this, knowing the way the Elite League are with players, apart from parking them at the end of the bench and saying, you can go on and warm up and then just sit in the corner and is that really any use to anybody? Are they not better off playing regular ice for the Steel Dogs? And I hope it's a good thing. I genuinely hope it's a good thing. I wish everybody involved all the best. But because it's UK hockey, I think it's kind of, what's the phrase? Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. It's kind of, I don't honestly know how it's going to end. I genuinely am one of these ones that hopes it ends well. I hope Hayes and Stoke get their ink sorted and they're back in. I hope that the other teams I heard approach to join the National League this year, if they open that invite back up next year and that happens, great. You know, I'm all for it. And what I loved this year was that when Solway stepped up, everyone got worried about, oh, that leaves a gap in One North. But the whole Jets stepped up and said, no, we've got it. We'll take that. And then everyone's like, yeah, but that's left a gap in Two North. And then the Kingston Sharks went, no, we got it. We'll step in there if we're allowed. I don't like seeing teams leave leagues to go to other leagues at the detriment of the league they're leaving.
Yes.
So I'm quite happy Solway came up. I think we all are. But I'm glad that that gap was filled and that the gap below there was filled and that, you know, no one's kind of lost out on the shuffle. And it's really good for Hull because Hull have now got Kingston Sharks in 2, Hull Jets in 1, Hull Seahawks in National.
Yes.
And that's what you want. You want that pathway. You want the 16, 18-year-old player in Div 2 sees a clear pathway.
Yes.
Kingston to the Jets, to the Seahawks, and from the Seahawks, who knows, up into the Elite League if they're good enough. And that's what you want. So it was a debacle. It was a mess. It didn't last that long. It was a couple of weeks. Then UK hockey, a couple of weeks is a long time. But the lesson to be learned for me is communicate. Don't tell everybody everything, but tell them something so that you can squash all the rumours and all the guesswork that's going on that when you look back at it now, you kind of think, oh God, someone that's actually really embarrassing.
That's exactly it. It's the silence, isn't it, that I think causes the big problems because it allows these rumours to just grow and grow. And next thing you know, they're spiraling, and you have bigger problems to solve. It's funny.
And you get everybody pointing fingers at each other. You get you know, someone's pointing at the EIHA, then there's Planet Ice, then there's the big nasty Sheffield Steelers too, and then well, why is Ali Cree selling? And it's kind of like, you know what? Most of that doesn't actually matter.
No.
It doesn't matter to us, the fans. We need to know. Fans need to know what's going on. They're the lifeblood of the sport, but at the same time, they don't need to know every minute detail and everything, every little thing that goes on.
No, definitely not.
As long as there's 10, 12 teams on the ice come the start of the season. But when stuff starts to spiral and get out of hand, that's the time to address it.
Yes.
It's better if you'd addressed it before it got out of hand.
Yes.
You know, if Steel Dogs have put something out and said, look, Ali Cree is selling, I've got a bit of an issue. You don't need to know any more than that. What we're looking to do is this, and it's with the league or the IHA or whatever to figure it out. Nottingham Lions had their own bit of weirdness this off-season where half the league announced fixture lists without them. Or not fixture lists, sorry, announced, you know, the makeup of the season, the format of the league and the cup, and 1 minute Nottingham went on that list and then refreshed, and 10 minutes later they were, and then the following morning they were gone again, and everyone's like, well, what's going on there? Again, communication's the key. Not just from teams to the fans, but maybe teams with each other.
Definitely.
Coordinate this stuff. Why is one team putting out something but the others aren't? National League seems to have it right. If the EIHA or the National League put something out, they seem to all do it at a set time. So if they say 8 o'clock, most of the teams do it at 8. Okay, the odd team doesn't, but that's probably because their volunteer social media person's not available at 8 and at 9 o'clock when the R does it. Just sync these things up, guys. You know, joined up thinking, joined up comms, and then you can avoid so many embarrassments. And it would be nice to have an off season where just there isn't anything.
Yeah,
it's just players coming and going, and everything else is smooth.
It would be lovely, but like I would never.
I'd dream maybe, but it would be lovely.
It'll never happen, I'm afraid. Yeah, exactly. But even so, we're nearly there now. The season's coming up. You mentioned Solway a few times there. Quite exciting I think, on so many levels, the PR is unbelievable. I think there are Premier League football teams that could learn something from the manner in which they've conducted these signings and announcing these signings. The recruitment has been second to none. It would appear anyway. I mean, let's see. Kind of the organisation seems to be completely professional in the manner it's done. What do you think about the season? How do you think the season will pan out for the Sharks?
I'm really excited to see Solway in. It's been whispered, rumoured, nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of things going on for a couple of off seasons now. Everyone's like, "Oh, Solway are joining this year," and never happened. And
Yeah.
the same rumours this off season. Oh, Solway are joining. Everyone's like, "Yeah, sure." And then all of a sudden, it's like, "No, this is actually happening." And like you said, they've proper hit the ground running for a team that was in SNL and then NIHL One North and was winning things all the time and getting decent crowds whilst doing so. They've overnight, this PR machine of theirs is rolling. All you've got to do is look at some of the, like I mentioned earlier, the two that stick out for me are the netminders. I'm a football fan as well, so I laughed when they had the netminder walk down the tunnel and pop out at the football pitch and look around stunned and ask where the ice was. Okay, maybe a little cheesy, but you know what? We all smiled, we all laughed, and that's what you want. You want engaging stuff, and they're engaging. Martin Grubb is a coach for the ages. He's been around for ages. He's done everything. The new owners seem to have come in and they're taking it very seriously, but they also seem like the guys that can put tongue firmly in cheek and have a bit of fun with it too. And that's refreshing. They've recruited well. They've kept a core. They've not kind of cleared the decks and started again. They have kept a core. But then they've recruited well from other teams. They've snappled a couple of Glasgow Clan players. They're looking strong. And if they can get a tie-up with the Clan, proper official tie-up with the Clan, then watch out, because that could be a phenomenal little tie-up. I was worried initially, as I'm sure everybody was, with the travel and the how's this going to happen, and you get a lot of people saying, "Oh, but how long does it take to get there? How long does it take to get back?" But they seem to have worked it out with the fixtures and the scheduling. I guess if that was that much of a problem, the other teams wouldn't have let them in. So the other teams must be okay with it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got through the door. But no, I'm very excited for Solway. I've got a couple of good friends at Solway. I'm planning a Solway trip at some point. I'm going to do what everyone else seems to be doing who's a football fan and trying to take a Queen of the South game in as well, because the football ground is literally just to the other side of the road. I'm going to be trying to be a bit flash and might be taking the Glasgow Clan game in at the same weekend, assuming all three are at home on the same weekend, obviously. But I'm really looking forward to seeing them. I think they're going to turn a few heads. I think they're going to be right up there as well. I'm going to go out on that limb and say that I think they're going to be more closer to the top than they are the bottom of that league. I think they're going to be another first season eye opener. I wish them all the best. I hope Basingstoke are back. I really do, because the more teams, the better. But no, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Solway can do. They've, like we said, PR, they're smashing it out of the park. Other teams are now scrambling to keep up. I think even Solway are embarrassing some elite league teams, to be frank. Some elite league teams, it's like, come on, if that's a National League team, you really could do with catching up. It'd be interesting to see if that lights a fire under some of the National League teams as well, because some of the National League teams' PR is a bit samey.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's a very interesting thing, like you say there, about the elite league. It is showing they have shown the elite league up in many respects. Like you said, they've nicked a few players from the Clan as well, which I find to be quite an interesting thing. And I wonder if that will pave the way as well for youngsters who are currently at elite teams, kind of going, well, actually, I am going to go down to the National League because I'm going to get the ice time, which I clearly need to develop, and go from there.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a talent pool up in Scotland that's pretty untapped because the gap between SNL and Elite League is big.
Yeah.
Now there's a potential for some of those Scottish players who were struggling to find somewhere to go. Maybe Solway's now that little stepping stone that I've got somewhere to break out to. Rather than, like you say, going sitting on a bench for Fife or Dundee in the Elite League and getting zero ice time. Give Martin Grubb a call and see if he's got a spot for you, and you're gonna get more ice.
Certainly, certainly. I thought controversial topic that one, though, really. But anyway, so we'll move on from that one quickly, I suppose, because let's get into the kind of the main reason we're here. So obviously, you are kind of the Mr. Roster when it comes to all of this. So it's quite nice to have somebody here who can talk through various aspects of each National League team. If we start first, maybe with the Bees, sort of what have been for you, in your opinion, the main comings and goings, or anything that you think fans from other teams might need to watch out for, which key players?
Yeah, the big thing for the Bees is going to be filling the gap that's been left by Brendan Walker. That's a huge loss for the Bees. He, not single-handedly, that would be harsh, but he did a lot of the work for the Bees last year, points-wise. He was right up there. Their player coach is back, and he's a very good player too. He racks up the numbers as well. So, and I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Coming in, I'm very intrigued and very interested to see how the netminder situation plays out. Obviously, they had an import netminder, and then they didn't. And they moved pretty quickly to pick up Bryson Priest from the Dundee Stars in the Elite League. That's going to be a big, big question mark for them. If he comes in and does really well, then they're going to be all right. But if he struggles, then are they going to rethink? We hear that they're only going to go with 2 imports to begin the season. I don't know when they plan a third, how they're planning a third. I don't know. Are they potentially searching for an import netminder? Who knows? I guess only time will tell. And maybe they're waiting to see how Priest gets on, and then if he's doing well, and they think no, actually he can more than handle this, we can look at a third import, forward or D. Keeps their options open, maybe. They have had quite a high turnover of the Bees. They've had James Galazzi and Adam Gossett both retired. James Galazzi, part of the furniture at Bracknell. Literally part of the furniture at Bracknell. So it's been coming for a while, I think, that he was going to retire. I think he may have been retiring the year before last, and maybe he's given it one more year, but pretty sure he's done now. Juha Lindgren off to Bristol. That's another big loss. Yeah. Josh Martin, Alan Lack, AJ Pitchley, all leaving for NIHL 1 South, Streatham and Chelmsford. So, little joke here, obviously, with Josh and JJ. It's 2 more ex-Bracknell players to Streatham, which you could also call them Bracknell retirement home when you look at their roster. I think unofficially, if you haven't played for Bracknell, you can't play for Streatham. I'm not entirely sure that's true, but it certainly feels that way when you look at their roster. Incoming, it's hard to tell, I think, for the Bees, because Vanya Antonov tore it up in the NIHL 1 South for Streatham. Fantastic player. Skills, speed, certainly knows where the net is. Does it all. I don't know how true it is, but I'm hearing that he's not on a full-time contract. I'm hearing that he's potentially not doing certain away games. Now, I said earlier I only did, in fact. I'm not entirely sure about my facts on that one. I've heard it from a couple of sources that I trust and believe, but I've also heard it from a source where I trust and believe that that's not the case. But either way, when he is on the ice for the Bees, he's going to do some damage. So they just want him on the ice as much as they can get. The reason I say I'm not so sure about a lot of the other stuff, young Sam Cooper coming over from America, bit of an unknown quantity, but we should, time will tell. I think the bigger thing for me is the influx from the Bison.
Yes.
The one team that's benefited most from the Bison's sabbatical is the Bees. They've got 6 or 7 players that have come across. It's a no-brainer. Doug Shepherd is still around at the Bees. It's only just down the M3. So it's not surprising that they picked up a fair chunk of them. And Brendan Baird, I'm looking at the list here, Brendan Baird's played for the Bees before. Josh Caddy's played for the Bees before. So a couple of them, they're no strangers. It'd be interesting to see how Balaz fits in from Basingstoke. Jack Hops is back on a 2-way with Stratham again. So, yeah, they've certainly upgraded. Depth-wise, it's not hard to have more players on their roster than they did last season, to be frank. There was several times last season they were showing up with a dozen players and a couple of netminders.
Yeah.
And whilst they were still doing decent, that's going to take a toll on players and bodies and injuries. So it's good to see them starting the season with a much deeper roster, even if it is just numbers wise. But also, some of the Basingstoke players come over, they've played together at Basingstoke, so they're not all total strangers. I think the netminder thing, to me, and I could be way wider than Mark, I think the netminder thing to me is what's going to make or break them.
Yes.
And the question mark hanging around about the third import, is Balaz and the head coach going to be enough import-wise, or do they need another? Is the D strong enough that they need to strengthen that up? Maybe that's what they're waiting for. Maybe there's method in their madness that they're waiting to see where they think they're lacking, and then go out and get an import to plug whichever hole it is, be it forward D or netminder.
Yeah, could be. And it could, like you say, it's make or break, really, isn't it, in those scenarios? But well, let's see. Moving on from the Bees to Bristol, the Pitbulls. How are you feeling about them? Any key players there that you think?
Bristol, again, another team who lost a chunk of players.
Yes.
Reece Kelly, Josh Shaw, Tyler Perry, all just up or down the road to Swindon.
Yeah.
Will Curlin, Ben Solder, Callie Robertson, all to MK Lightning. They're 3 big losses, by the way.
Huge.
Will Curlin's a netminder
Will Curlin's a netminder
we're all looking at and thinking, wow. Ben Solder's solid D.
Yes.
So yeah, they've lost a chunk of players. They've recruited. They've kept Sobchak as an import forward. Sorens is from Peterborough. New guy, Tanner Butler. They've looked solid enough, but I don't think there's anything massively spectacular there. I mentioned Johan Lindgren earlier, leading the Bees, and he's now rocked up at Bristol. I'm excited and interested to see how that works, because he's always been Slough, always been in and around Slough, in and around Bracknell, when Bracknell was a thing. So it'd be interesting to see new start, maybe going somewhere different. So that'll be interesting in itself. Bailey Harewood, I quite rate him. I do think he's a little underrated in my opinion. He's on a 2-way with Cardiff as well, the Cardiff Devils. So they obviously still see something in him. The Smittle brothers now reunited. Matt Smittle Matt Minder and obviously Luke Smith up front. Neil Lydiard is an interesting one. There's some experience right there. So that would be interesting to see how that pans out. Christian Moore, another Slough Jet. Slough seeming to have two ways and a pathway through Bristol rather than the Bees, which is another interesting story, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, I see them as okay. I see them doing all right. I don't see them setting the world alight, if I'm brutally honest. Just my assessment of them. I'm sure they'll probably make me eat my words. They'll probably do better than that now that I've said that. But I think the turnover is the big issue for me for them. Because like I said, 3 at Swindon, 3 at Milton Keynes. That's not including 2 or 3 others that have also gone. So I think they're still trying to find their place in the National League as a new team. I think they're still trying to find, maybe I should have said identity rather than place. I think they're trying to find their own identity, what they want to be as a new team to the league. So yeah, again, another team I wish all the best to because they're a newish team. And you don't want teams to come in and just sort of get turned over week in, week out as a new team. You want teams to be competitive. Yeah, I think they'll do all right.
Yeah, great. It's interesting you say that. Like another team that's probably trying to find its where it is in the league is the Hull Seahawks. So if we we'll move on to their many key points. I think in many respects quite a similar scenario in terms of attracting players, trying to develop a style, things like that. What about that?
I'd agree with you there. A little less turnover for them. They've lost a couple of players to the Solway Sharks. Let one of their imports go. Had somebody step down to the Hull Jets. Bobby Streetley head off to Blackburn. That's the only outgoings that we know of at the moment. So relatively, compared to the rest of the league, that's not a lot heading out the door. They've re-signed a core, and some of that core are just players that are Hull through and through, or have made their mark at Hull and are staying. Nathan Salem, ton of experience. Stubley is always there. Bobby Chamberlain, kind of returning in inverted commas to Hull from MK. He's on a 2-way with the Manchester Storm. Declan Balmer's re-signed for Hull, and he's on a 2-way with the Manchester Storm. So that can only be a good thing. But then they've gone out and picked up players from their Yorkshire rivals. Thomas Barry from Leeds, Lee Bonner from Sheffield. Then they've re-signed Will Schweck, one of their imports. Got some other players, Alex Kent, Chris Wilcox, Jordan Fisher, Lee Pollard are all back. Their imports are what interests me because 2 imports out the door, 2 new imports in. Bobby Young from the NCAA. Struggling to see the other guy now. Oh, Brock Bartholomew, who's been out in Sweden last year. New to the league, new to the country. And as we go through the other teams, I'm going to say exactly the same. New to the team, new to the country. So therefore, unknowns. You just don't know what you're going to get. You can look at the stats on paper, but that doesn't always tell you everything. I've seen players with lights out stats come over here and then stink the place out. I've seen players come over here and you look at the stats and go who, where, what, and then they come over and they lead the lead in the scoring. So imports coming in, no disrespect to them. They're unknown quantities. The Matty Davis will know more than what's on a bit of paper. Fans can only go what's on a bit of paper until they hit the ice. I think with the signings in and the fairly small amount of signings out, I think they're going to do well. I think also now that they've got the Hull Jets in National League One, who Seahawks work well with, I think you'll see some 2 ways. I think there's going to be a natural progression. I believe they're back up. They've got Jordan McLaughlin in there. I believe the backup is on a two-way with the whole Jets, and that's not surprising. I would expect to see quite a few more of those to pad out the roster as time goes on. I think Hull are going to surprise a few this year. I don't think they're going to have the struggles they had last year. Hopefully, they've got all their imports in and their paperwork sorted for the start of the season this time round. Hopefully, they can have a full roster before Christmas. Because that hurt them last year. It was such a bad and unlucky thing for them. The first year back in the league, imports can't play until Christmas because it took so long to get the paperwork sorted. And then when they do get them all signed, one picks up a 10-game ban in his first game for a questionable hit.
Yeah.
And he has to sit 10 games. It's like he just got his paperwork and bang, see you later, he's sitting 10 games. Again, because they're new to the league, I wish them nothing but success. I want to see the new teams, the Bristols, the Hulls, the Solways. You want to see them competitive. Any league's boring when one team just runs away with it, or two teams run away with it. Hello, Premier League football. I'm looking at you. You kind of want the competitiveness. I think Hull have strengthened. They look, some of the signings as well. Liam Danskin. That excites me because he was on a two-way with the Glasgow Clan and the Solway Sharks last year. That kind of excites me. Thomas Barry and Lee Banner, signing from Yorkshire rivals.
Yes.
That rivalry, I hope that rivalry really picks up. I know Sheffield and Hull back in the day, years ago, that was always a love-hate relationship, a really big rivalry. I hope that Leeds can kind of tap into that too, and you can get like a little triangle of Yorkshire going on. I think that would be great.
It would.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they're looking a little stronger than they did last year, and I think they're gonna surprise a few this year. I think.
I'd agree with you there, and obviously let's. I don't think we can't. We have to talk about Leeds now, don't we? Really, like what's the obviously from one end of the table to the other in a weird sort of way, I suppose. Like Leeds smashed it last year, run away with it really. But we've seen a big kind of exodus, and we've seen players coming in. Anything there that's there's probably a lot that's worth noting there. We could probably do a whole podcast on Leeds.
Yeah, Leeds is a weird one to me. You just want a double, and half your squad's headed for the door. Thomas Barrett at Hull, that we just talked about. Tate Shooter's gone to Blackburn in One North. Archie Houser's has stepped up to the Elite League. Coventry Blaze. Adam Barnes also to Blackburn Hawks. A couple of imports not coming back. Cole Shooter obviously stepping up to the Sheffield Steelers in the Elite League as well. So, Leeds' success has also become their undoing slightly with a couple of players leaving for the Elite League. Carter Hamill heading off to the MK Lightning. And then you look at who they've kept. They've kept the big names. They've kept, the best netminder in the league, in my opinion, last year, Sam Gospel.
Yes.
They've kept a core of players: Kieran Brown, Josh Hodgkinson, Matt Hayward, Jordan Griffin, Ollie Endicott, Harrison Walker, the Here brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you pronounce it. They've kept a core, and then they've gone out and got themselves 3 new imports. I just talked about new imports. That, to me, is either crazy or genius, and only time's going to tell. Because 3 new imports, never played over here before in the league, let alone the country. One coming from France, one coming from the ECHL, one coming from Canada. Complete unknowns to us for doing this kind of preview. We don't know. Again, we can only go what's on paper. Ryan Aldridge, though, is no fool. The imports he recruited last year, well, you know what? They did all right.
Yeah, not bad.
So, let's see if he's worked his magic again. Matt Cowell at re-signing as well. Sorry, I forgot him. An interesting one for me, dipping into an NIHL 1 for a second, is Lewis Colvin has signed for them from the Invicta Dynamos. And from what I know of Lewis, he's been at Invicta for a chunk of time.
Yeah.
So that one, I wouldn't say strikes me as strange, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
Not that I don't think he'll fit in. I just
strange jump.
It's a big jump from. Do I get away with saying Invicta are a mid-table one South team, or will the Invicta fans shout at me? And then now you're playing for the defending champions.
Yeah, it's a big jump.
It's a big jump, and it's not just around the corner.
No, it's not. Long way to go. Long way to go.
Invicta to Leeds is a bit of a drive, so I hope for his sake he's not commuting. I hope there's another reason that he's moved up north or something. Yeah, it's a weird one because the way Leeds tore it up last year, you would immediately install them as favourites for this year. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't personally have them down as favourites because of the three imports. Give it a month and I'll come and ask me again. let me see how they're doing after a month, and if they're doing well, I'll eat my words. But
yeah, it's a big call.
You just don't know. It's a big turnover at that club. There must still be signings to come as well.
I would have thought so.
There doesn't look to be a full squad there to me.
Yeah.
But okay. Ryan Aldridge, like I say, is no mug. Not at all. He knows what he's doing. I just think the turnover is what kind of worries me for Leeds. Could you have followed up your year one success if you kept everybody and gone for year two? Yeah, probably, but for differing reasons that's not happened. So it'd be interesting to see how they bounce back. If they were a flash in the pan, 1 year flash in the pan, or if they're going to be right back up there again.
Yeah, that's true. You'd never want to bet against Ryan there, no. But I must admit it's a lot of change. There's a lot of change in probably a time when I would have thought he would have wanted to have kept a huge body of that squad, but we'll see. We'll see. What about MK Lightning? Another team that was kind of like was pushing and was in there or thereabouts last season. How are they looking?
Yeah, the Lightning to me, there's a lot. They're taking a lot of flack, and I think unfairly. They're taking a lot of flack because they're taking a lot of players from a lot of other clubs. Lee Jameson has finally on his skates up. If we start with the Archers, I never thought I'd see the day. I thought he would be playing until
80
forever.
Yeah.
But for him to hang them up, that's a big loss to them. Obviously, Bobby Chamberlain's gone off to Hull, and then this is the bit where I think the Lightning. It's where they're taking some unfair criticism. So they've lost Sean Norris to Belfast. They've lost Jack Hopkins to Coventry, both elite league sides. Sean Norris is going to be a big loss. I saw him play for Belfast last season on Viaplay, and didn't look out of place at all. So you've lost that from your roster at Milton Keynes. That's a big loss. Zane McKenzie going off to Telford and on a two-way with the Nottingham Panthers. So again, there's another elite league club who've benefited. Gordon Barnes Garner's taken the decision to drop down to Chelmsford along with Ben Russell. One of their imports has left. Sam Talbot's gone at the Guildford Flames. So there you go. There's another British guy who's headed off to the Elite League. Liam Stewart's not back. He's taken a bit of time out of hockey. So that's, they've lost some big names there. And
huge names. Yeah.
Norris, Talbot, Stewart, even just those three, ouch.
Yes.
Add that to Bobby Chamberlain, Lee Jameson retiring. There's 5 big names, big spots you've got to fill, and that's what Milton Keynes have gone out and done. They've re-signed Leek Martelli, and that was the first signing that they announced, and I don't blame them getting that kid wrapped up quickly. Smart move. I see where some of the fans of non-Milton Keynes teams are feeling a bit aggrieved with Milton Keynes and their recruitment potentially, because Harry Gulliver from Romford, or Raiders, got to be careful what I call them, that's a good pickup too. Then obviously they've kept a core like Milton Keynes and Peterborough, for example, always do. So James Griffin, Jordan Headley, Callum Field, Rio Grinnell Park, Lewis Christie, Ed Maggs, Ross Green, all back. There's your core of returnees. But then they've gone and got Ross Venus from the Coventry Blaze Elite League. And at the same time, they've got Tom Rutkiss, who stepped down from the Dundee Stars of the Elite League. They're two big signings. Let's not make any bones about it. You know, Ross is maybe in the twilight of his career, but he's still going to do really well at this level. Rutkiss as well. You just look at the players they've signed. They've also announced a whole bunch of people on two ways with the Thunder, which intrigues me a lot because the relationship between the Thunder and the Lightning was never, ever that good. Yeah. It was always, I wouldn't even say big brother, little brother, because I don't think it was that close. It was almost like cousins, you know, it was very estranged. And now all of a sudden you've got half a dozen players on 2-1.
Yeah.
Can only benefit the Thunder, but it's not going to be bad for the Lightning too. But then they've gone out and they've raided the Pitbulls and taken Curlin and Solder. They've got Corey McEwen from Peterborough. So they've made some big signings. Rory Herman, the import from Telford. Yeah. They've made these big signings. And I think some of the criticism being thrown their way is maybe a little unfair. I think it might be an element of the green-eyed jealous monster. You know, people are like, how are they doing this or how are they signing that? But we just talked about some of the players that have headed for the door and they needed to replace them.
They do.
And that's what they've gone out and done, but they're certainly not messing around.
No.
At the end of this, ask me and I'll do, I said to you earlier before we started this off pod that I don't tend to like doing rankings 1 to 10, you know, give me where you think teams are going to finish. But I think Milton Keynes are going to be right up there. I really do. I won't do a ranking at the end of 1 to 10, but if you want me to, I think there's 3 distinct groups of teams.
Yeah, I think it has to be done. It has to be done. I think that one is it. Yeah, but yeah, what about Peterborough Phantoms then? There's another thing.
Okay, Peterborough. I say this all the time about Peterborough. Slabber loves to retain players and keep the same thing. The phrase "if it ain't broke, don't fix it" kind of springs to mind. Peterborough were there or thereabouts last year. They won a cup last year, I think I'm right in saying. And they were there or thereabouts in the league. So, you know, Peterborough quietly go about their business. Peterborough fans get ready to throw stuff at me and call me names. They're not big and they're not flash. They don't do anything flashy. They just get on with it. And when the season's over, they're always there or thereabouts. They're right there. They've got some great players. I think arguably they've got one of the best net-minded duos in the league in Jordan Marr and Tyler de Herbatouche. But Slabber's Slabber. Slabber signs players, and if you're a Slabber player and he likes you, I'm just looking at the list now on my website, re-signed pretty much everywhere. Brad Barrett, Billy Thorpe, Callum Douglas, Jarvis Hunt, Tom Norton, Tyler, Jordan Marr, Archie Salisbury, Scott Robson, Duncan Spears, Mike Sousters, Joseph Breton, Leo Markey, Jasper Foster, Will Weldon, Austin Mitchell King, Lucas Sladowski, Alex Padlek, all re-signings, all of them. Then I've got a couple of youngsters, Louis Carniston, Justin Dennison, Leo Markey on 2 ways, 3 ways with Romford and Peterborough too. So they're Peterborough prospects. They've added Luke Ferrara from the Nottingham Panthers, by the way. Let's not forget that. But Luke Ferrara, guess what? Played for Peterborough forever under Slabber. So yes, they've got him to step down from the Nottingham Panthers. But that's pretty much all they've added.
Yeah.
Archie Salisbury was down at Chelmsford last year, but kind of two-waying with them. He's back. But yeah, they're pretty much the same squad as last year.
Yeah.
Add some prospect players and chuck in Luke Ferrara from the Elite League.
Yeah. Well,
Luke Johnson's out, Glenn Billings out, Pollard out, Bainborough out, and Corey McEwen off to their local rivals, the MK Lightning.
Yes.
So Peterborough, pretty much a known quantity.
Yeah. And in a world of complete inconsistency, everyone changing squads left, right, and centre. Could work.
Compare them to Leeds.
Yeah.
Chalk and cheese, completely the opposite to Leeds. Leeds clear the decks, loads of new people in. Slaver's like, nah, re-signing everybody. Oh, and I'll make a phone call to Luke Ferrara at Nottingham, who I've known for years as a Peterborough player anyway, and get him back to come back and play for me. I don't mean to make light of that.
No.
I think Peterborough will be there or thereabouts because they always are.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true. It's important to mention, isn't it, that they absolutely did a job in the cup final over Leeds, and Leeds last year didn't lose really, so it's
they didn't lose many. They lost that one, which I think shocked a few.
Yeah.
Especially like you say in the style it was done. I think in the first leg, it was pretty much all over
5-6-0. Yeah, absolutely ludicrous. But yeah, it's quite amazing, really.
It would be interesting as well. Sorry to interrupt. It'd be interesting as well because from what I'm seeing there, Peterborough still potentially have an import to them.
They do.
They have Slodowski, they have Padlek. Sousters always confuses me. I'm sure he confuses everybody around the league. He's not an import, but yeah, they still have another import slot available. So
yeah,
that could be interesting too.
Yeah, and obviously move on. Let's talk about the Raiders. This is another weird team for me. They seem to always be able to turn up and ruin any other team's day, but they don't seem to always develop the consistency for me.
No, I would 100% agree. Romford are that stone in your shoe. They're the little annoying, but again, they can upset the apple cart. They can surprise people on their day. They're right on it. Again, just looking down their list, kept an import, 2 imports gone, 2 new imports to the country. Nick Leia, Pierre-Luc Leray. Again, I'm going to go over old ground. New to the country, who knows? Could be fantastic. We'll wait and see. But again, Romford haven't had that much turnover. Harry Gulliver left for MK Lightning. Tommy Huggett has gone down to the Invicta Dynamos. 2 of their imports have left. Harvey Briggs has gone with Stratton. Dan Scott. Wow, that's a loss for them. Dan Scott to Invicta. Gulliver, Huggett, and Scott, not big losses.
Huge.
But they've retained. They've done a Peterborough. The vast majority of their players are re-signed. But I don't mean that to dismiss it because Aaron Conley, Jack Cooper, Tom Roth, Michael Power, TJ Anderson, some of these players that I'm just saying, they've re-signed them. They're really good players to be hanging on to. I'm not making light by just saying, they've re-signed them. No, they've kept a huge core of their squad. They've kept players that I'm sure were having taps on the shoulder from other clubs. They've picked up a couple from Basingstoke. Like I said earlier, the Bees are the big Basingstoke recipient. But George Norcliffe and Zach Milton from the Bison to Romford. I think, I was on Banners on the Wall podcast last night. Anthony was saying that between them they had 120 points for the Bison last season.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Raiders have lost Dan Scott, Harry Gallagher, and Tom Huggett, but they've just replaced them with George Norcliffe and Zach Milton and 120 points potentially. That's not bad business, quite. I think Romford are going to be solid mid-table, and I'd maybe put them knocking on the door of the top 3 or 4. I think they're gonna be the ones that are upsetting the apple cart this year. I think there's going to be some teams that are going to roll into Romford and underestimate them and walk out feeling a little embarrassed. I like the look of Romford. I like the look of their squad. Again, the unknown of the imports is what's fascinating me throughout these teams we're going through. I think I said it with Bristol, I've said it with the Raiders, I've said it with at least 1 or 2 of the other teams as well, Leeds as an example. Who knows until we see these imports hit the ground and see how they play and how they fit in.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very, very true. Let's move on to the dramatic one, the one that's caused a lot of drama over the last couple of months, or a month or so, I suppose, is the Steel Dogs, Sheffield Steel Dogs. Well, there's been a lot going on there. So
yeah, the Steel Dogs, interestingly, they kind of done a chunk of their squad by early June, and then it all died off. There was no announcements. It had all gone radio silence out of Sheffield. Now we know why. So they've got a fair chunk of their business done. Greg Wood leaving as head coach, being replaced by Jason Hewitt. And then, apart from Thomas Dermott joining from the Nottingham Lions to the One North, everybody had re-signed. Ollie Turner, Matt Bissonnette. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that import name because I know I'm going to butcher it. Nat Minders back, Jonathan Kirk, Lewis Bell, Tom Dermott, Jack Brammer, Brad Doxey, Cam Brownlee, all back. So it's all re-signings apart from a young lad that they'd added from the Nottingham Lions. Then there was all the rumour, all the speculation, talked about that earlier, so I won't go over old ground. And then once that all got sorted, the Steel Dogs kind of went, oh, and here's the rest of our squad, by the way, and did it in one big hit. And again, with the exception of 2, they're all re-signs. So Ben Morgan, James Spurley, Hayward, Charlie Thompson, and Tim Smith all back. Then they've added Dan Crow from the MK Lightning as a netminder. And then obviously the big talking point, the big story is, I think we'll call him GB Legend. I think we can get away with that. GB Legend Jonathan Phillips leaves the Steelers emotionally at the end of last season. Leaves GB and is now a Steel Dog. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. It's like we talked about earlier. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Steel Dogs Steelers thing meshes and how it comes out in the wash. Jonathan Phillips could tear this league apart. Yes, he's older than most, but I spent a week watching him play for GB in Nottingham, and he's still got it. he's not lost a step. So yeah, I see Sheffield as the dark horse because, yeah, we were talking about Peterborough and the Raiders just now with if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The Steel Dogs last year, again, were another team who were there or thereabouts and, you know, shocked a few quite a lot. But as the season went on, it wasn't shocking anymore. It was just, that's what the Dogs were doing. Yeah. The Dogs were turning up, turning you over and leaving with a 2 point. Thanks very much. The addition of Phillips is huge. The addition of Phillips to any team in this league would be huge. And I think it would be very interesting to see how the Dogs Steelers thing works out and what goes on with players. It might not happen this season. It might be next season that starts to become more obvious on what the plans are, because that's pretty much the same squad as last year. They've hardly had anybody leave. Greg Wood left. Lee Bonner went down the road to Hull. And Jordan went up to the Glasgow Clan of the Elite League, and when the Elite League come knocking, guess what? You're going to go. So they've only lost 2 or 3 players. That's a ridiculously low turnover for a National League team. Yeah, I see them being dark horses, and I don't know if it'll be this year or next, but I'm intrigued to see what happens with players on 2 ways, players playing up, players playing down. It could be interesting times at Sheffield going forward.
Definitely. I probably agree with you there. I mean, it's one of those weird things. It can go one way or the other, can't it? Talking of that sort of scenario, we've also got the Solway Sharks stepping up finally. I think having not lost a game in I don't know how long, it's about time they've stepped up. What that looks like, I don't know. How they'll be, I don't know. But anything there, I suppose there's lots you want to add to this one.
Well, yes, Solway, you could pretty much do a pod just about Solway, them stepping up, how well their social media and everything's going, and how open the owners seem to be. I could talk for ages about Solway. Off ice, they're just impressing the heck out of me. It's just balls rolling and it ain't going to stop.
Yeah.
They're just doing phenomenal work. As for the team, obviously, fair chunk of turnover. You're stepping up from the North to the National. You're going to have to strengthen. You're going to have to bring in some players. Obviously, imports especially.
Yes.
But you look at what they've done and you look at where they've gone and you think, okay, they probably weren't happy with leaving Skinhead in the Hull. They probably were like, ouch, that's not helping us. But then when you look and see what they brought in and you sit and look at it carefully, Barry McKenzie from Fife, all the experience in the world, Barry McKenzie.
Yep.
Liam Stenton from Glasgow, from the Clan. Kel Beattie, okay, it's probably going to be on a 2-way with Belfast again, but they've snaffled him off Hull. They've stuck with a lot of players who played for them in the North. They haven't kind of gone, right, thanks guys, we're moving to the National League, so everybody out, new lot in. They've kept, again, like I think you need to, they've kept the core. Ross Conley from Hull, Curtis Warburton from the Hull Seahawks as well. By the way, his PR, we all knew where it was going when we saw the loaves of bread, but great fun. They've had to kind of not start from scratch. Like I said, they've kept the core, but they've had to then kind of build, and they haven't gone and raided other National League clubs, which is what I find interesting. They've gone and raided the Glasgow Clan and the Fife Flyers. They've picked up John Dunbar from the Glasgow Clan, a guy who was at Guildford for a chunk of time, a guy who's been racking points up in the Elite League for fun. And so I've gone, oh yeah, by the way, we signed him too. It's some phenomenal recruiting. It excites me. New teams to the league always excite you. You always think that new teams to the league are going to struggle.
Yeah.
I don't think the Solway Sharks are going to struggle. That squad they've put together, some of the experienced players they've got, some of the younger players they've got, great mix of the two. They've gone to Canada to get a couple of imports. Interestingly, I've just noticed that 2 other imports are coming from the same club. So, not strangers to each other. That's going to help. And then you're tracking, like I say, John Dunbar from the Glasgow Clan, who I reckon's going to be right up there for leading point scorer in the league come the end of the season. If he's not, then Martin Grubb needs to give him a kick up the butt and say, excuse me. It would shock the hell out of me if he's not. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Solway. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. I'm looking forward to seeing how the rest of the league adapts. The red herring is the travel. It's not that bad. I don't think it's as bad as it's been made out to be. Sure, it's a couple of hours longer on a bus, but you know what? For the vast majority of players, it's not going to hurt you that much. And with the double headers they're planning and things,
But
it'll be
it's
fine.
yeah, of
And
course it will. Just
I,
nonsense, complete nonsense. It's a national league. If you don't want to play in a national league, go down to one of the regional leagues. It's that
yeah,
simple.
exactly. One south and one north. You don't want to travel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's where you should be. But yeah, it's like the look at our roster excites me. And the elephant in the room, Craig Peacock, is he going to whack on a pair of skates before the end of the season? I'll tell you what, I'll have a fiver with anybody. Yeah, he's going to play before the season's out. He's bound to put the skates on at some point. For a long time, for the whole season, I doubt it. I can see him getting itchy feet at some point and wanting to play. And if he does, what mid-season signing you've got yourself there? But no, all joking aside, another exciting looking roster. A couple of unknowns with the new imports, but I am sounding like a stock record with that line. But yeah, I've seen some people say that they think they'll struggle. I look at that on paper and think you're not looking at the same thing as me. I think they're going to be right up there.
I think that, yeah, you're right there. There's a cynicism, isn't there, of struggle of coming into a new league. Maybe they will, but I think you'd be foolish to suggest that. I mean, everything's been done right. And I mean, personally, I think they've got to be considered one of the favourites for the league. I really do. I really do. Famous last words, and I apologise to anyone at Solway if I've jinxed it. But yeah, I really do. I think they've got to be considered.
The Solway fans have just thrown things at you rather than me.
That's it. Yeah, no, not again. Yeah, no. But yeah, that's great. If we move on, then maybe we talk about the Swindon Wildcats. Obviously, a huge team within this league, really. And I think it hasn't worked the last few seasons. Really, it hasn't quite clicked. What about transfers this year?
Yes, Swindon always look to have a great team on paper, always. Yeah. And for whatever reason, they seem to get to Christmas and the wheels come off. And that's been as long as I can remember. Sorry, Swindon fans, don't shoot the messenger. But you always start really well, and then Christmas, New Year. I don't know if the Wildcats have a cracking Christmas party or something, but post Christmas, it all seems to just fall apart. Again, they're another one who's not had much turnover when you look at it. Ollie Stone taking a year out of hockey. Floyd Taylor's retired. Dingskins and Loris Taylor and Ben Nethersoe aren't returning. Reese Kelly has gone to the Glasgow Clan. So I repeat what I said earlier. If you're that good in the Elite League come calling, then you're gonna make that move. They picked up Lubueli from Basingstoke. Other teams are going to notice that because Lubueli is a very physical player. If he can stay out of the penalty box, I think he's going to be massive for Swindon, not just physically. I think he's going to be massive for Swindon. I think that's a great little pickup there. But they've not had much turnover either. Sure, they've had a couple come in from Bristol, but Bristol and Swindon seem to be very similar to Basingstoke and the Bees. The players seem to come and go quite regularly between the two sides. But you've still got Malasinski there. You've got Colby Tower there as well as their other imports. They're both re-signings. The Wildcats are the only ones really with the imports that you can comment on without me having to use the line, oh, they're new to the country, so who knows? No, they're not. You've got two re-signings and a guy from Basingstoke, so their imports are known quantities. Aaron now is going to rack up a bunch of points, always does. Malazinski's going to be right up there. And then they've kept a whole chunk of players. They've added Glenn Billing from Peterborough. They've added Josh Shaw and Tyler Parry from Bristol. And then they've got their prospect players. Sorry, Peterborough call them prospects. I'm not sure what Swindon call them. The Swindon's prospect players, you've got Jamie Smith, Dylan Lipsey, who I am only going to assume, I haven't checked, I'm going to assume is in some way related to Darryl, who was Mr. Swindon for a long time, Darryl Lipsey. So yeah, I think again Swindon, along with Peterborough, along with the Raiders, along with Sheffield. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is it broke at Swindon? I honestly don't know why they can never seem to get over the hump at the end of the season. Maybe this will be their season. Who knows? But again, another one who's going to be right up there because they've retained everyone that they really needed to. They've added strength with Librelli. Consistency sometimes, keeping the same players is the way forward. Peterborough are the example. There or thereabouts. Every year, very little turnover. Very interesting to see Swindon trying to follow that lead potentially. Very little turnover. Let's see if they can keep it up beyond Christmas this year and be there come the end of the season.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's true, and it's funny this because the next team we're talking about kind of they almost do the reverse in many respects with Telford Tigers. I mean, another huge team, which again has just faltered the last season, this season or so, couple of seasons. What about there? How are things looking now?
Yeah, Telford last year came out of the blocks pretty well. Mid-season slumped badly, horrifically badly. They were falling like a stone, and then all of a sudden, late January time, boom, shot up like a rocket, and just an amazing turnaround. Another club who haven't had that much turnover, relatively speaking. Tom Carlin retired, Gareth Flaherty retired, Brody Jessen headed down to Deeside, Rory Herman in brought forward is headed to Milton Keynes. It'll be interesting to see how he does because he did very well for Telford last year. Interesting to see how he gets on with the Lightning. Charlie Webb down to Solihull. Jason Silverthorne taking a year out for surgery and injury. That's a big loss. Huge loss. And then, again, just looking at the page here, massive chunk of re-signings. Brad Day, Scott McKenzie, Finney Howes, Danny Rose, Sam Watkins, Deacon Fielder, Henry Adams, Jake Price, Lucas Price, Rhodes Mitchell-King, Vladimir Luca, Jack Watkins, Tom Bryan, and Nick Oliver all re-signed. So that's more than a core. That's pretty much a squad of players. They've got Harry Ferguson from the Glasgow Clan, which is another intriguing sign. It's intriguing to see so many of these British players stepping down from the Elite League into the National League. Zane McKenzie, they picked up from the MK Lightning. Joe Aston stepped up from the Telford Tigers too. I think he's bounced between the two clubs due to injury and potentially work recently. And then, guess what? A couple of new import forwards to the country. Jesse Sutton and Bradley Hepner. Time will tell. I've said it before, we'll have to wait and see. So, yeah, pretty much the same squad they had last year. Two new imports. Zane McKenzie added in. Harry Ferguson added in. It'd be interesting to see which Tigers that is. Is that the Tigers at the start of the season, mid-season, or end of season? All the Tigers fans will be hoping it'll be the team that ended the season and that they can do it throughout the season. Because last season was just too up and down for a club like Telford. I think I'm quite excited by all these new imports to the league. Not just Telford, but it's going to be interesting to see how these new imports pan out. The high turnover of imports as well, with the exception, obviously, of Swindon and Peterborough. I think it's going to be a much more competitive season this season. I'm hoping we don't see, as happened last year, the Bees the pit bulls, the Seahawks, kind of cut adrift early and then never really managed to turn it around and get back in it. And they were a chunk of points away from everybody else. I think we all want to see a competitive league. Even with those three teams last year, anybody could beat anybody on any given night. I know that's a cliche, but it's true. I think that looking at all the teams on paper this year, I think that's going to be even truer this year. I think you're going to see a much more competitive league. I see a couple of teams maybe struggling over the full season. But I guess someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. So it pans out. But yeah, I think much more competitive season this season by the looks of things.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you there. It's interesting to see how the league's shaping up, actually, which I think is quite an interesting thing. You mentioned earlier about giving us a breakdown on where you think teams sit, rather than I wouldn't be cruel as cruel as to demand one team that you think might might win the league. But where do you, if you were to break down the league by the end, where do you feel various teams are?
I think to me, it looks like there's three distinct groups. I think Solway. Let me have a little look here. I wrote this down earlier because I knew I'd freeze and like bunny in the headlights. I think MK Lightning, Leeds, Swindon, Solway. I think that's your top four. Not in that order. I'm just gonna say they're your top four in some form. I see your next batch is going to be a bit more fluid with the last batch. I think Hull, Peterborough, Romford, Sheffield, maybe even Telford would kind of form your next group. And then I would kind of, if I covered everybody, if I then say bees and pit bulls in like a third group, I think the bees have strengthened and have more depth, but I still see them struggling over the full season. The same with the pit bulls, I can see them struggling. But then, yeah, like I say, the next batch would be Hull, Peterborough, Raiders, Dogs, Tigers. I think your top four are Wildcats, Solway, MK, and Leeds.
Yeah,
so I think that's how you're going to pan out. I'm not going to put my hand up and say I think if I had to pick, if you were holding a gun to my head and said pick a team, I would probably pick the Lightning.
Big call.
But Solway, it wouldn't surprise me to see Solway do it either in their first year. And that's why I put them in a patch of four, because you can make an argument for Leeds too.
You could.
So, and then trying to rank them 1 to 10. I see fans doing these rankings of 1 to 10 and saying, I'm not even going to go anywhere near that. I just think I can do a top four, I can do a bottom 2 or 3, and I can do a mid-table chunk, which is what I've done. But that mid-table chunk and the bottom 2 or 3, I think that's going to be a lot closer this year than it was last year. There was a distinct gap between the last 2 or 3 teams and the mid-table teams. I don't think that gap's going to be as big this year.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you there. It's a horrific one to make those decisions, isn't it? And I do agree with your reasoning with the mixing people up. Big call on the Wildcats, though. Big call on the Wildcats. Which,
I hear Wildcats fans every year. This is going to be our year. It's coming at some point. It's going to happen for them. But if they don't do it, they're going to be right up there. I don't think they're going to be mid-table.
On paper, they have probably one of the best teams.
It's more of a gut feeling, I think, Swindon.
Yeah.
But Hey, that's why we do predictions, so that we can all look silly at the end of the year.
That's it, mate. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's perfect. Well, anyway, mate, let's finish there before we say anything else alienating and we cause problems. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, mate. It's been brilliant. And if anyone wants to check out, I'm sure people listening to this will already know your website anyway, but I'll put it up above here anyway, but it's nihlrosters.co.uk as well, isn't it? Which is probably the best, least dramatic website for finding anything about the rosters for the ice hockey in the National League.
To be fair, I try and keep it simple. It's very old. Sometimes it looks like the 1980s called and they want the website back. But the idea is it's to keep it simple. It's to keep it quick loading. And if you want to load it on your mobile and you've got a crap signal, hello Milton Keynes Rink, I'm looking at you. You can still probably get my website up on your phone. You might not be able to get Elite Prospects up, but you can certainly get mine up. And it's to keep it simple for everybody. Drop downs and searches and things like that, they get a bit much. So I just like to keep it easy for me, easy for the fans.
Yeah, I agree. Mate, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's been brilliant.
No problems at all, mate. No problems.
Thanks.